Hello everyone, this is Highlander from MTG Cardsmith doing another custom Magic the Gathering card review, and today we're reviewing a card by Hergusbergus, our friend, our foe, our frenemy. And we have another card. This one also has a preface. This is from a challenge, and the challenge is design a white permanent that destroys something. Okay? So let's see how well you did here. So 5 mana for enchantment. Appease the Shogunate. Shogunate. What's the definition of Shogunate? Let's find out. Define Shogunate. The hereditary military dictatorship of Japan. Okay. Military dictatorship. Okay, I see. Okay. Neat. Okay. Wow, that's some kind of like Japanese samurai golem. Interesting. Cool art. Okay, creatures can't attack you. Okay, so we're like super moat here. Tap 3 untapped creatures you control. Destroy Appease the Shogunate. Any player may activate this ability only on their turn. It's a little cheaty. I mean, I guess technically it does fulfill the challenge, but I don't know if it's within the spirit of the challenge. But whatever, you know, I'll let you have it. I'll let you have it. So okay, so this is a super moat. This card's actually difficult to grade. So certainly, if this wasn't here, this card would be This would be a poor design. I mean, moat is not a good card design. All right, it's just not. For various reasons. One being that it can like completely hose certain types of decks, which is not really the way that cards should be. I mean, you know, I understand that like sideboarding is a thing, right? But your sideboard cards should not completely hose a deck. They should make the matchup better for you, but not completely hose it. Like, remember they used to make they don't really do this anymore, but remember they used to make these like anti-mono red cards that were like, you know, like it'd be like a 2/2 with protection from red, and whenever a player casts a red spell, you gain 1 life, and it's like, how are they ever beating that card? How are they ever beating that card? So I think designs like that are pretty bad. But here you have this additional clause of tap 3 untapped creatures you control. Destroy this, and any player can activate. So this is interesting because okay, let's think of again. Let's go through a couple of scenarios here. So let's just think about 1v1 for a minute. Let's ignore multiplayer. Let's say you're playing a control deck, okay? Let's say you wrap the board, and then you play this next turn. And then they can't attack you, and then but then at that point you kind of have to like you kind of have to keep their creature count down if you want. I don't think that's how this card's going to play out most of the time, actually. I think probably the way this card's going to play out is you're going to play this, and they are going to have to spend their turn destroying it, because they have to tap the untapped creatures, right? I mean, sometimes, yeah, they'll have 1 or 2 creatures, and in that case, this card will be really, really annoying. Like, imagine this again. I mean, this is kind of a bad comparison, but like, imagine this in like a Bogle's deck, right? Like, if somebody is just trying to like make 1 huge creature, this card will just like wrecks that. But of course, this costs 5 mana, and against a Bogle's deck, you're basically already dead at this point, or not dead, and you've already won. But you get what I'm saying. There's certain decks where this will be really difficult to deal with. But I think most creature-based decks will will be able to deal with this just fine, but they're going to have to spend their turn doing so. Now, in a control mirror, this card is also pretty annoying because it's like you're basically forcing them to have a non-creature finisher, essentially. So in classic control, I mean, control decks are kind of different nowadays, to be honest. You don't generally see control decks like the ones of old anymore, where you just like loaded with a bunch of removal and counter spells, and you just kind of like, you know, deal with everything they have. That's not really how control decks play out nowadays, but in a situation like that, you're sort of forcing them to have a non-creature win condition, or a way to destroy this. And in that scenario, this card would essentially grind the game to a halt, and somebody would probably eventually just deck themselves. But again, I think that situation's pretty rare. In multiplayer, I think this is kind of, it's somewhat interesting in multiplayer because, so you play this, and I think a lot of people just aren't going to bother destroying it if they're on the offensive, right? They're just going to attack somebody else. But I think like there's going to be some situations where, you know, you're playing against somebody that just, I don't know, they're playing a deck that isn't really so much about being aggressive, and they just happen to have a lot of value creatures around, you know. I mean, somebody, who knows, they play a Mirror Battlesphere and they just kill this thing, you know, like for free. So I think overall in multiplayer, I think this card's actually a lot worse than it is in 1v1. And in 1v1, it's sort of just an expensive fog a lot of the time. And occasionally it'll give you some number of turns. It's really hard to gauge. I mean, the card's pretty expensive. That's the main thing, right? So, I mean, by turn 5, if you haven't dealt with their creatures, this is just a 5-mana fog, which is pretty bad. And it's not even a full fog. If they have more than 3 creatures, you know, they still get to hit you. But it's sort of like if you're playing a deck that is killing their creatures, or I guess the other side of the coin is you're also playing a creature deck, and you threaten to, you know, they have to tap 3 creatures, and that threatens their life total because then they cannot block your creatures. And this sort of just lets you swing for the fences. So maybe that's a better place for this card to live, is in a deck where you're playing creatures yourself, and it's sort of like a creature mirror. Yeah, I don't know. This is a really tough one to grade. I think that my hunch says that this card's probably not very good. I think there's more situations where this card is just a 5-mana fog than it is like actually doing something. But there are some situations where it will be good. And the problem is the situations where it'll be good, it'll be really obnoxious. So, yeah, you know, while this card's cute, I think that it's not a particularly great design, simply because of the fact that, like, okay, there's like a really fine line where this card is good, but not awful to play against. And I think there's way more situations where it's either terrible or it's so good that the other player wants to kill themselves, you know? And I think because of that, I think this is maybe not the best design. Yeah, it's just, you know, I don't know. That's kind of how I feel about this particular card. So, Also, I'm not quite understanding the flavor here. Are you like bowing before this thing and that appeases it and then it goes away? Or why is the Shogunate making it so creatures can't attack you? I guess there's a little bit of flavor here, but it's not. It's definitely not in your face. But that's okay. I mean, it's not the end of the world. But overall, I think this design is just a little bit too risky for my liking. Again, I think the situations where this card is either bad or so obnoxious just outweigh the situations where this card is fun. And that's really what that's the whole point of Magic, is to have fun, right? So I think this one I'm not the biggest fan of. I'll give this one a 6 out of 10. It's certainly interesting. It makes you think. It's well formatted, but I think I would tend to stay away from cards like this personally. So yeah, that's my review of Appease the Shogunate. I will thank you guys for watching.